Hi everyone. Here's a discussion of perspective. First thing I think of in perspective is where I am standing. A second piece would be my eye, and then the third would be my eye level line. It relates to you. When you do a perspective, the lines appear to converge on your eye level line. A one-point perspective is where you're standing in a singular position and the lines of your drawing converge to a single point. A perspective drawing is a way to create what we feel we see around us. In the old days, perspective was utilized by artists to gain that sense of illusion, the illusion of space. So if you start with your eye level, see that's roughly, I'm trying to draw that at my eye level, and then that becomes your eye level line, like the horizon line, okay? And if I'm standing, I'll draw this as though I'm standing in a room. If I'm standing in a room and I got the two walls here, if I projected those two walls out into space, going out into infinity, they would appear to converge, right? So the vanishing point, VP vanishing point, is on your eye level line, or like your horizon line, like the horizon, right? Okay, so let's say these are the two lines that represent a room, let's say. And so let's say that's the ground line, and then this would be the leading edge on the ground. Now, one of the things that you can do when you're doing a perspective drawing is to select your sense of depth. There's ways to achieve it, but for our purposes and for most purposes, you can select that first sense of depth, that's that line, the second line, okay? And then let's say this was in a room and I wanted to develop it as a mosaic floor, or I wanted pieces of furniture that I was going to illustrate. So I would divide this line into units, okay, like this. And then these lines, these could represent rows. You know, let's say it was a room full of desks, and that could represent the rows. It could represent like a tile floor, okay? Okay, then these lines all go back to the vanishing point. This is a one-point perspective. There's just a lot you can do with a one-point perspective. It's good to know how to do it. Okay, then the next piece in this, in order to illustrate and understand how these lines are going back in space, you do it like this. That diagonal line going through the two corners of your first rectilinear area will give you the depths. See how that works? Okay, once you know how to do this, you're good to go. Okay, you can just do, there's just many things you can do if you just know how to do this. Okay, so let's say I wanted to make this into a room for some reason. And this became the two walls. And then something like this. Well, if I want to know, if I have in this room, I've got a dresser, chest of drawers, or something that's this big in the corner in front of the room, cabinet. Well, then these lines are all going to continue back, and then where those lines then will set up the idea. So how big's a cabinet back there, like that? That cabinet would be this big over here, right? So you can plot out things all over your drawing. If you had a window in your space like this, but it related back to these positionings on the ground, you can figure it all out. Like, let's say that's a window, right? If you look at Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper, Look at the windows on the side. You'll see what I'm talking about. Look at the ceiling in Leonardo's Last Supper. And you'll see this. Okay. I remember one of my books had how to draw a room, and then it had, you know, plotting it all out. Like, let's say there was a chandelier coming down here or a light of some type. You can plot it out. You know, you find your points and you plot it out. It's like volumetric cubic space, and you can just plot out anything. Okay. Okay. Let me show you a couple other things. People sometimes wonder like how to do figures. The first thing is, if you have, let's say you have a, can you see this? Yeah, okay. You have a figure, and put a little hat on it. Okay, the figure's that big there. So you can utilize perspective to understand where that figure and how that figure would look back in space, just by projecting your lines, right? So back here, that figure would be here, back here, about like that. Okay? Okay. Well, here's another thing. Okay, what if he or she is above or below your eye level line? Like that. Okay. Well, it's the same thing, right? Then that figure's that big, then that figure's that big. There, like that. Okay. Alrighty. So then, you know, sometimes you've seen in books and the drawings of like telephone poles going back. Well, how do you get them to go back in perspective? Okay, let's say this is your horizon line, and then you've got a vanishing point over here. You project the lines for the top and bottom of the telephone back, like that. And you select your second line. If you were to look, like I'm looking right here right now, looking outside here, and I can see these lamps. If I went over and I drew on the window with this, I would get this. Okay, so if you take a piece of glass, this is an excellent thing to do. Just take a piece of glass and just put it somewhere and then just draw on it with like a grease pencil or something like this. Or go up to a window if you live on like a second floor place. Go up to the window and just draw what you see out in your world, and you'll understand perspective. Your drawing is a picture playing like a piece of glass, if you get what I'm saying. Okay, so let's say I pick the second one. That's what I did in the other one. Okay, and then you find halfway. Find halfway on any rectangle like that. That goes back, and then you're set up for the whole thing. And so on. Okay, that's the same rule that I was showing you on the very first one. So look, here, right? Just this will be the last thing for now. If you start to understand how this works, when you're drawing, you'll start to just get a sense of how it is. It'll get in you in a way, and then so this box here on my right at the horizon line might look like that. If I had this box shape up here, you know, I might see the underside of it like that. You know, if it's over here, and you're roughly projecting back to here, right? You get used to it after you do it enough, and you get used to it. You get used to how it works. And then in something like this, let's say you want to draw a shape, but you don't. It's not necessarily a rectilinear shape that you want to draw, but you can utilize it. Okay, so once you kind of understand how all this works, you know, you can use that to help yourself make a cylindrical shape, right? So when you're drawing, you're recognizing, you know, your outcome of your study is like that, right? But you're able to recognize the relationship between the form to a rectilinear shape, and it helps you construct things. I have different ways that I like to teach, and sometimes I like to teach this way where it's like a very constructive sort of way. Other times I like to teach where I don't do this, and it's very observational in sort of a different way. They're both valuable. I learned all of it. I just couldn't get enough of it when I was trying to figure these things out. I wanted to learn every single thing I could. It just fascinated me so much. One last thing before this is over, I just want to show you that this can all relate to other things that are really interesting, like how to plot shadows, you know. And so you have the tools just within you as you figure this stuff out to just draw just anything. But like, let's say your sun is up here. Well, it goes in a straight line, light, right? So as it travels down that straight line, it's the area here that's going to become the shadow, the part where the sunlight's going all around whatever it is you're drawing, okay, or seeing. So then that same fence post or whatever it is at 5 o'clock in the afternoon might look like this, you know, depending on the time of year, you know, and so that shadow's looking like that. That's a really fun thing to figure out in relationship to learning how to do perspective. Okay, well, I hope you enjoy that, and I'll try to do some more talks. Let me know, and I can try to do something else if you find this helpful. Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.